Tropical Depression 1E is here in the Eastern Pacific, heading for Mexico. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for May 29th. So we have our first Eastern Pacific tropical cyclone. It's 1E, but not the first Northern Hemisphere one, because we briefly had that one in the Arabian Sea a few days ago. There is also another area of interest there in the Bay of Bengal now, which now has a 50% chance of developing, but it's on very short time. Well, in the Atlantic, we've dropped that brief 10% that we gave near the Azores, so the basin is once again completely quiet as we prep for the start of Atlantic hurricane season. Just 3 days to go. Of course, now in the Eastern Pacific, we've got this new tropical depression, 1E, which is likely to become our first named storm of the Eastern Pacific hurricane season relatively soon. Advisories began around 3 hours before this bulletin. No warnings in effect at this point, but we do expect, well, National Hurricane Center are expecting a peak of 65 miles per hour. In the Western Pacific, we're still watching this area of interest here. Curious one, 91W, the invest designation, 20% that we're giving it right now. It's sidling along the coast of Vietnam, showing signs of a rotation, but it's probably not going to last very long. And in North Indian Oceans, we've been alluding to a very deep low pressure system here right now, starting to become a little bit more cyclonic, but still got a ways to go in terms of getting that circulation sorted out. It's going to be quite strong and very wet for the coastal communities there, with very high rainfall amounts possible. No warnings or areas of interest down in the southwest Indian Ocean. We saw a brief clump of thunderstorms yesterday. Well, as you can see, most of those have dissipated near the Seychelles, so not too much to look at here. And in the Australian region, of course, no areas of interest to look at, but we're still quite baffled at how busy it's been in the southern hemisphere. You can see those numbers. 26 tropical storms have formed this season across the southern hemisphere, and 8 majors as well. Close up on Tropical Depression 1E, 35 mile per hour winds and a pressure estimate 1005 millibars, 12.6 north, 104.1 degrees west as of 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is also Mexican time, this May 28th. It is 627 kilometers from the nearest significant population at Lázaro Cárdenas, 713 from Manzanillo, 898 from Puerto Vallarta, 1199 from Mazatlan and 1292 from Cabo San Lucas. It could end up in the Gulf of California in the next few days, but probably dying off by the time it gets there. Let's take a look at an assortment of satellite imagery views. First of all, the rapid scan from GOES 18 is currently active on the Tropical Depression 1E, so we're treated to these very clear, smooth images of the storm or the depression as it's on its way to storm status. It's looking pretty good. This big spiral shape on it. It's quite a large system, and I expect that pretty soon we'll be seeing some pretty extensive tropical storm force winds in the next 24 hours. It will gradually shrink in size as it gets closer to Mexico and loses some of its heat potential from the sea surface temperatures, which will be fading as the system heads towards the coast of Mexico. Well, this is Invest 91W, which we're giving 20% chance for right now. 30 mile per hour winds, 1006 millibars. As you can see, it's trying to get a tight little rotation going by the looks of things, and throwing up a few thunderstorms just off the coast of Vietnam. Some storms inland as well, well inland in fact, over Cambodia by the looks of things, and possibly into Laos. But for the system itself, still a little bit of way to go on that one. And this is the massive Invest 94B. Just look at the size of it as we look at this floater. You can see it's trying to swirl there, with the northwestern side looking the weakest by the looks of things. But huge amounts of convective cloud tops from this one. Producing very high amounts of rain along the coast of India into Bangladesh, and that will continue for the next 24 hours probably as it makes landfall pretty shortly. Wide shot of the Atlantic Ocean, US East Coast, a few storms along the Gulf Coast actually, and a big frontal system moving through the northeast. This is the open Atlantic, where you can see a very weak wave there, possible wave moving through into South America, very low latitude still at this time of year. Wide shot of the Eastern Pacific showing quite the extent of 1E. Its clouds extending quite a distance and feeding into the Gulf of Mexico as well, a few storms there. There's Invest 91W looking very messy on that western side of the Western Pacific, South China Sea region. Monsoonal rains over the Philippines, which will be producing very high amounts of rainfall in the next few days. And there's 94B, a wide shot of the whole Bay of Bengal, and it fills up half of it, as many systems do to be fair at this time of year. That low pressure for the 40-mile-an-hour winds really tells you a lot about how large and broad that system is, 989 millibars. Southwest Indian Ocean, not too much going on there. South Pacific showing what was that extratropical cyclone still moving through New Zealand, but the front at the beginning of that system, which had the most power in it, has already pushed through. Sea surface temperatures are rapidly increasing over the eastern part of the Gulf of Mexico. Temperatures up to 29 or 30 degrees Celsius now over a significant swathe of that region. In the Western Caribbean, a similar story there as well. Looking in the Eastern Pacific, of course, very warm waters, especially where 1E is at this point, around 31 degrees Celsius, but it will drop quite quickly as it heads off towards the northwest. Western Pacific still looking very good as well, obviously on the up. All around the Philippines there, 31, maybe 32 degrees Celsius in one or two spots there, all around the northern Philippine islands. For that Invest looking good too, around 31 degrees. It will start to decrease a little bit. North Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal, those temperatures will be on the decline under all of that cloud cover, but still at the moment around 31 degrees Celsius over a large part of the Bay of Bengal. Compared to average, look at the orange zones there, those are above average temperatures. The Atlantic in particular, all around the Gulf Coast there, looking very good indeed, and in the Western Atlantic. Eastern Pacific still a half and half picture there, although above average where this system is heading 1E, which will help it along, and Western Pacific looking quite good all across the basin. Bay of Bengal also slightly warm, 2 degrees above average. Oceanic heat content also modelling through here in Eastern Pacific, got a decent bank of that there, especially underneath, of course, that depression once again. So all the conditions are there for it. If it was a much tighter system, smaller system, it would probably have gotten much stronger than it currently is. Western Pacific looking very good as usual. Atlantic here as well. Western Caribbean is the hot spot there, feeding into the Gulf of Mexico there through the loop current, and also starting to increase off the east coast of Florida as well, increasing that energy value. These tends to favour rapid intensification and also help storms if they are stalling a little bit. Well, GFS computer model for the next 5 days really wraps up 1E into a tropical storm in the next 12 to 24 hours, and then a broad system at first, then it tightens up as it loses momentum, loses strength, and then completely fades off the map by the time it reaches the coast of Mexico, there the Gulf of California. I think that's getting into Sinaloa, but possibly Nayarit if I've got my provinces correct. But lingering off the coast there, which really robs it the chance of making a tropical storm landfall. Western Pacific, looking at the mess here that is these two systems, you saw very quickly there the Bay of Bengal, that big tongue of storm force winds following through behind that area of interest. Western Pacific starts to get a little bit busier towards the end there as well in terms of inclement weather, but nothing really of a tropical cyclone at nature. So getting rather unsettled in these areas, as is the norm for this time of year. And to add on to that, look at the precipitation charts for the next 7 days, and you will see enormous amounts in some areas, precipitation into the red zones there, that's getting on for 250 millimeters, then into the pink zone there, which is getting up to possibly 500 millimeters, and then we go even beyond that as well, just off the northwestern tip of Luzon in the Philippines, possibly up to 1000 millimeters, but mostly at sea. Looking at the Indochina region there, getting up and above 500 millimeters possibly in the next 7 days in southern parts of Myanmar, where that Invest is going 94B, maximums of around 450 millimeters. Into the longer range then, day 5 to 10, right at the coming into the second week of June, actually, we're looking at a system here in the Eastern Pacific becoming quite a powerful hurricane, actually. But of course, we saw the same forecast happen for 1E. So we'll be approaching this with skepticism, but there it is nonetheless, a system that becomes a powerful hurricane in the first week of June. It makes sense to see something like this, especially with the decent heat potential, so who knows, that might happen. Scan the barcode and that will take you through to the Force of the Team merch store, where you can take a look at all our items as well as our full season and individual storm animations. And all of our outlets readily available through our Linktree page. Take a look at that for all of our areas. Well, into the fantasy range, which is quite fantastical. What happens with that hurricane there? Well, it parallels Mexico and then moves away, and then this Atlantic system, hurricane briefly there before reaching the Yucatan, yes, and then very large again into the Gulf of Mexico. You may remember the bulletin yesterday, which pointed out an enormous system over there. Well, here it is again in a slightly different form, a little bit more concentrated this time and further south, moving through Mexico and possibly Belize, and then into briefly the Bay of Campeche, and then on towards the coast of Tamaulipas towards the end there, as once again it may be a hurricane, but that is very long range. Western Pacific in that same period, this again is dated 10 to 16, so not much confidence or faith in these forecasts, but there it is, a typhoon, possibly heading towards Japan, maybe a full recurvature there, hard to tell, but whether that even forms at all in the first place is the big question mark. But if it did, it looks like its origins are going to be near Guam and the Mariana Islands. So what happened on this day? Well, not that far back, we did have a real contender in the Eastern Pacific. It was Hurricane Agatha, which almost reached Category 3 status, peaking with winds of 110 miles per hour. It was the only system active on this day that year, but certainly it looked quite impressive. I remember doing coverage on that one, and a storm that tried to push a little bit further, but it ran out of time in the end, reaching that second peak, I think on the 30th, if I remember rightly, just before reaching the coast of Mexico, where it completely capitulated. That was Hurricane Agatha. Well, back to today, we are code blue at this point, which is the second lowest code on our tiered color codes. In the Atlantic, the first name this year will be Andrea. In the Eastern Pacific, Alvin. Not quite yet, but looks like it is well and truly coming soon. Central Pacific, it will be Iona. In the Western Pacific, our next name is Wu-Tip, and in the North Indian Ocean, it will be Shakti. Still stuck at 25 storms so far around the world. That should be changing shortly. In the Southern Hemisphere, of course, the Southwest Indian Ocean will have a new naming list starting on the 1st of July, but for the time being, it's Lyra next up. Australian region, it's Fina, and in the South Pacific, the next name is Ermil. That's all for tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow night.
Become an Ultimate Fan today.